And he was so upset. You ready? Sure. You want me to start? Go for it. Good evening, folks. I'm Melissa Schwartz. I am one of the co-chairs of the United Parent Council Gifted Committee. How many of you know what United Parent Council is in this room? Oh, most of you do. Fantastic. For those that don't, most of our schools have PTOs and PTAs. We have 43 schools in the district, and we have something called the United Parent Council. Each of those schools sends a representative, or as many as we can get from those schools, to a United Parent Council to work together on district-wide initiatives, committees, working with many of our directors throughout the district to help them get parent feedback. And I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Karen Brown for, 12 years, in and out of our district, I should say. So I certainly have a long relationship with Karen and can tell you a lot about the gifted program, but a lot of the things we worked together on over the years include parent feedback and working with these fine teachers here. My kids have gone through almost all of these programs over the last 12 years. So with that, we want to welcome Karen Brown here to introduce our panel tonight. And we are recording this. It will be on the United Parent Council YouTube station or channel. If you have not seen that before, we have our own channel, and we have a whole section on gifted programs that we have done over the past seven years. We started with my iPhone, literally recording these, so they go way back. And there are a lot of great programs on there. So for parents online, please check that out. It's easy to find. It's youtube.com /PVUPC. Sometimes you put a space in there, but you can find it if you go to youtube.com and look for the PVUPC channel. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to turn this mic on. Get up here. I have a wonderful. All right, I'm going to use a microphone not because you can't hear me, trust me. I have a teacher voice, it carries. But because we want to make sure that those people who are listening online can hear us. I do want to take just a moment and introduce the amazing group of teachers that we have up here. When we sent out the would you like to? Teachers don't usually jump at chances to be in front of adults. Now put them in front of kids and they're fine. Put them in front of adults, not so much. But these ladies were gracious enough to say, yes, I will do this. So ladies, if you will wave as I introduce you. We have our gifted cluster coach. She handles differentiation with our cluster classrooms throughout the district, and that's Mrs. Tamera Ohler. Not up front, she managed to stay in the back, is our amazing gifted program mentor, Mrs. Elizabeth Warner. So representing our comprehensive gifted intermediate grades is Ms. Susan Flores. Also representing our comprehensive gifted intermediate grades is Mrs. Christine, I can't even say it, Christina Lewis. We also wanted to represent our students who are in content replacement. And so we have Mrs. Borkin here. And we have our primary comprehensive gifted multi-age teacher, Mrs. White. We have Mrs. Robinson, who is brave enough to teach kindergarten. And last but definitely not least is Mrs. Peterson. She is also one of our content replacement teachers. So this evening is about them answering some questions, explaining our program, helping us understand who are these kids that we're servicing. What do they look like in the classrooms? How do we support them? How do we make sure that the learning they're getting is appropriate for what they need? And so we do have a series of questions that I'm going to start us off with, but then we will have an opportunity for other questions should you have one. Now, I will tell you we can't
address questions specific to a learner due to further constraints, but we can answer more general questions. So the first question that I'm going to ask them, and I won't make all of them reply, but I am going to ask them to share one word that they feel best describes a gifted learner. And you can't duplicate.
Well, then I'll go first. I would say the one word would be innovative in so many different just aspects and in different ways. The way that they solve problems and the solutions that they can come up with things that I have never seen before. So I think innovative.
My first thought was multifaceted. We're looking at them from so many different sides, and they show us different things every day, different faces. Super shiny.
I would say exuberance. If you give a gift to a child, a topic that he or she is passionate about, I'd say that enthusiasm is contagious and exciting for teachers as well.
And I would say inquisitive and curious, definitely. For most of them, pretty much I would say all of my kids. They might not be always curious and inquisitive of what we're doing in the classroom necessarily that day, but definitely have a curiosity and they're definitely inquisitive about the work.
I'd like to say interesting. They're just interesting to talk to when it's non-academic, when you just have a conversation and you find out what they know, what they're interested in, their experiences, their opinions, what they really think. I just find them really interesting. And some of my students, I would just love to talk to them all day long if I could.
I pick the word intense kids, intense parents. I'm speaking to cluster kids who don't want to brush their teeth but have to have the green toothbrush. Kids who I can talk to you about math, but I'm going to melt down because I'm not the line leader. So it's the kids and their parents and their teachers.
I'm going to add in individuals. One of the biggest eye-opening things I've seen is how there's not a look of a gifted kid. There are many different looks, and so they're all very unique, and that can vary day to day. So like they can change their persona.
They most definitely can. Thank you, ladies. So our next question is, would you think of a favorite experience in teaching these learners that you'd like to share?
So prior to teaching kindergarten, I taught the comprehensive gifted preschool, so 4 and 5-year-olds. And in my first class, I had a student, we were reading the 3s, 3 bears, 3 billy goats, 3 pigs. And I read a Jan Brett book called The 3 Dassies, and it's a play on the 3 pigs. So we went through, they told the story. And at the end of the book, they showed a photograph of the real animal. And one of my students raised his hand and said, "That looks like sub-Saharan Africa." And I thought, oh, first of all, where did you learn that term? And then second, how do you know? So we turned to the very back, and sure enough, those animals live in sub-Saharan Africa. And I looked at my assistant and said, "That's why we're here."
Can't give it away, sorry. I think it's hard, because that was one question I had difficulty with, because there's so many experiences and some of them are big, some of them are small. Just the other day, we're playing a stock market game, the students are, and they're on teams. And I'm having this wonderful conversation about stocks with this young 4th grader in my class, and I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, wow, it's just so impressive the conversations we're having. Or maybe it's a story that we are annotating and really putting together themes and connections, and they come up with things. I'm like, I've read this story for 4 years, different groups, and I've never thought of it that way. So every day is almost something that is interesting and it comes up. So it was really hard for me to come up with an instant. I wish I had a one story, you know, like funny, and I'm sure I do. But I can't really just, because there's so many. I agree. I also can't think of just one, but I know that there is one that sticks out in my mind, as just being an experience that constantly wows me. Every couple of years in my class, when we're learning about economy, we create small businesses. And so we have a Lewistown, and the kids get to create their businesses and create their products and their business plan. And then of course they have to pay taxes, which is not their favorite thing to do when they learn that part. But kids have some incredible ideas about the businesses that they want to start with. They want to create goods and sell them, or sometimes they provide a service, or make money that I print off. But every time that I do that, just again, the innovation, the ideas that these kids have, and I'm always blown away. And sometimes after we do a little soft launch, they reconvene and they can very quickly identify new problems in their business that they haven't seen ahead of time. And the way that how creative they are in solving these problems. I had a student once that created a sticker business, or he did a lot of wakeboarding, so he decided to make a wakeboarding logo. And the student ended up actually creating this as an actual business and printed off the stickers and created the website and started selling them out. And he was shipping them out for the rest of the school year. It was incredible. So, and there were people all over the lake that had these stickers of a student that was created the business in the class. So every couple of years when I do that project, I know that there's going to be a handful of ideas that these kids have that just blow me away. So that's why. Entrepreneurs, yes, I think.
All right, so I'll move on to the next question. What do you see as the biggest challenge that you feel gifted learners face at your level? What's the biggest challenge they face? Whether it's kindergarten, 5th grade, 6th grade, or 4th grade, what's their biggest challenge?
Okay, well, I firmly believe that childhood should be a journey, not a race. And even though they are profoundly gifted, I think one of the biggest challenges they face is just that they are overscheduled and overwhelmed, and they work so hard in school. And then they go home, and I think they should be well-rounded little humans. That's what we want, right? But sometimes there aren't enough hours in the day. I think they feel sometimes pressured and maybe have to get tutored after school, even though they're so far ahead of the curve in math. And yes, some of them are incredibly talented pianists and incredibly gifted dancers. But I just feel like it can be a little bit exhausting. And I wish that also parents could know that it's important to let them be children and have imaginative play and go be kids when they get out of school. So that's and I think I'll add to that too, that I'm noticing in my 4th graders, it's becoming more challenging. The math gets challenging, the writing expectations get higher, and that's normal. That's progression, they're learning. And I think it kind of rocks their world sometimes when they're not right or they don't understand. And I think some of them may already feel that imposter syndrome. Like everyone thinks I'm smart, but I don't understand this, and they don't want to ask. And so that is something that I feel like I'm teaching them the skill, how to ask, how to advocate, and make it okay that they don't have to know everything, because they've always been, wow, you know this and you know that, how do you know that? You're right. And, they're far ahead of their peers. But at the same time, I want them to be comfortable it's okay to not know. And the student that asks the questions, that's a good student. They're asking. They missed something on the test. Great, they're asking, they want to learn, and I tell them that's a great skill. And teaching the students this skill, but I think it's also important for parents to know too that we want them to have a safe place in elementary school, 4th grade, where they can learn from those mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to know everything, because if they knew everything, they wouldn't have to be there. They wouldn't need a teacher to facilitate learning. So we're working on that skill, but I recently had an experience where I know a young student, she didn't want to make test corrections because that was admitting she didn't know, and I was working with her, and we'll continue to do that, but I want her to feel comfortable, and I had a conversation with her mom that when you're in elementary school, this is where you learn that it's okay to make those mistakes, you know, it's okay to advocate, so that when they reach even a higher level of expectation, that they have that comfort level, that they've already practiced it and they know it's okay. And so I always congratulate students when they ask questions, and we applaud it. I might hand out a spark ticket, which is what we do for rewarding students. I reward it for behavior, responsibility, because I want them to know it's celebrated when you ask questions, and it's a good thing, and it can help others. So I don't want them to develop that imposter syndrome that I think they already start at a young age, and suddenly they reach a little bit of a challenge.
What I see quite a bit in my 4th to 6th grade students is the difference between their intellectual ability. So yes, they are maybe reading at the top grade level, high school level, and their math skills are, they can solve more complex equations. But then when it comes to, they're still 10-year-olds, 9, 12, 11, and they still have a lot of things. Okay. So we really need to help them. They might have some issues with working in groups, forming friendships, just social and emotional, and I see more of that. Working on those skills along with academic skills is really what we need to foster, because sometimes those can be interpreted as behavior, but they're just really, that difference between the intellectual and they're just social development, where they're still with their age group, although they can understand maybe some deeper concepts, and they have different view maybe than their peers on many things that go deeper. So that's what I see need for us to.
Well, and it's just a challenge. I mean, I don't want these kids to stop being quirky. We want them to be intense. We want them to be quirky. We want them to be highly passionate. But you do have to know how to bring a business proposal to someone. I want to bring this business plan to you, and I want to bring it to fruition. But I really want you to still be passionate about that native prairie grass in Iowa. Because those roots might be the cure for Alzheimer's, which will help me because it's coming. And so it is a challenge. It's a challenge to keep them being kids. It's a challenge for them to see that I'm not perfect. We don't want them to get to college and not know how to study. We want them to learn these skills when they're young, fail when you're young. And school is a society, it is a community, and you do have to operate within it somewhat. Don't lose your quirkiness. Don't lose what makes you you. None of these teachers up here ever would ever want that to happen. But we realize that there is systems that we operate in. We want you to be successful business people. We do. Keep your quirky.
I know Karen said we couldn't do a ditto, but I felt like, no, it works. I felt like Susan started talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I had written that down. That's funny. And then Sasha started talking, oh yeah, I went back down too. I also teach 4th and 5th content replacement, and I think some of the biggest things I see is that these kids have intuitively known what's going on, and then they start to hit some concepts, and it's a little scary to not know and to not get, and then you start putting back around you. And I think a big focus that I have is trying to tell those kids it's okay to make mistakes. I model it all the time. They're like, you messed up. Yes, I did. Now I can grow today. So join me. And just knowing that it's okay, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, what college these kiddos are going to apply to will ever see those grades. So a B is not a failing grade in a gifted class. You've got hard content. You're being pushed more than maybe you've ever been pushed before. And I like what Tamera said about start learning how to ask for help now, because it's scary to ask for help. If you've never had to do it before, the longer we wait to ask for help, the harder it's going to be. And then we get that imposter syndrome. We're worried about, oh no, I was never really smart. I just snuck through there. No one knows. No, you really do have those talents, but let's add hard work to it. And that might look like some mess ups, and it might look look like I need help with this. And that's okay, and that's normal. And you are still very brilliant, and you still have all of your gifts. But we're starting to get to that age right now where hard work is going to make a bigger difference than what you truly.
Well, I'll just share a quick story. I had a student come to me, she's starting 4th grade, and I had known her in 3rd grade. And she came in and she started the year by saying, "Mrs. Brown, can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure, what's wrong?" So it happened, I think it must have happened over the summer. Okay, what happened over the summer? I lost it. You lost it? I'm thinking she lost an object of some sort. She's like, "Well, so I don't have it anymore, and I don't know what happened, but it's gone." And yeah, I'm not understanding you. What's gone? Well, you know how last year I was gifted? Yes. I'm not anymore. I said, "Yes, you are." "No, Miss Brown, I'm not, because you know how last year, in my class, my hand was always up, and I know the answers, and I know what to do, and I can help people." And I said, "Right." She said, "Well, this year, especially in math, I don't know the answers." I said, "Okay, when your teacher shows you how to do what you need to do you understand?" "Well, of course." So, "All right, and are you able to do your assignments?" "Well, yes." "Are you getting good grades on your tests?" "Well, yes." "So what's the problem?" "Well, I just don't automatically know the answer." Right. Giftedness does not equal effortlessness. You have to work at it. But many of our children, because they have always known the answer, they don't know how they know the answer, they just know the answer. That becomes a real struggle. And for some of our learners, that realization can be paralyzing. You see, because I'm the kid who knows the answer. I'm the kid whose hand is always up. And now I don't. And I don't know what to do. But please remember, when your child is struggling, struggle is not a bad thing. Struggle is a good thing. Because struggle is how I learn. And if I'm never able to struggle, learning is going to be really hard. I need to struggle. And I need to find that joy in, "Oh my gosh, I figured it out." You're right, you did. And I knew you would. You did. You figured it out.
Can I take you home and then?
It's hard, it's all the time.
That's super hard because, that becomes the part of their identity. They don't learn, like, 3-year-olds, they don't struggle as a 3-year-old, they don't struggle as a 4-year-old, they don't struggle as a 5-year-old. And so it's in their DNA, like, oh, this is part of my identity, and we have to separate that and show them real mentors out in the real world. That Taylor Swift, iHeartRadio last night. I mean, any artists, I mean, they struggle, they fail. You have to work at it, because all you have to do is go on TikTok or Instagram and see hundreds and thousands of gifted adult learners and say, "I'm not gifted anymore." It's not true.
Not true. Yeah. Part of growing up, part of learning. I used to tell parents that when I was a content specialist, I would tell my parents, if I teach your child nothing else this year, I would teach them how to fall flat on their face, pick themselves up, and decide the sun's going to shine on them. You are just fine. The world did not come to an end because you didn't know something. You're fine. And they would laugh at me and they'd say, "We know, Mrs. Brown, we know job security." You're right, job security. I need you to not know, because otherwise, what am I going to do? We want them to understand that. All right, ladies, next question. What do you want all gifted learners to know specifically about themselves? What do you want them to know about themselves?
That they are more than just what's going on in this brain. That they are kind, that they're funny, that they, they have jokes, they have tricks. It's not just about the learning. It's not just about, let me fill my brain with all of these facts and things like that. That you're here to be a student, part of a society, part of, a group of other children, and part of school is being social, learning routines, things like that. I think that's super important.
I think we touched on this. I teach the little ones versus second graders, but I have a big sign on my wall that says mistakes are proof that you're true. And I tell them we don't learn how to ride a bike if they fall off. And so, Karen just said, but that's the biggest message I would like to give them. Is that's how we learn by making mistakes. I would probably tell the students that be who you are. Don't hide it. Be who you are. Have your interests, your passions, and if someone else you're talking to isn't interested, find someone else who is. Like, be yourself. Don't hide it. Don't change it. Just be yourself. That's because a lot of them, as they're getting older, they're noticing peers, students from other classes, that peer pressure. Sometimes they want to hide that. I don't want to say giftedness, but that passion that they have, that intensity. I don't want them, like you said, I don't want them to change. Be who you are, because that in itself is going to be their success as they get older. And if they try to downplay their interests, downplay their abilities, I feel that they're not going to be happy with themselves. They'll always have that internal struggle, that conflict, and they're trying to fit in. And so when I have students that I said earlier are very interesting, I want them to run with it, run with those interests, share those interests, present those interests, because people do admire that. And I think in the long run, being who you are is really going to benefit them in their future, their jobs, their life, and I think it will bring happiness to them.
We know that these kiddos are very intense, and when they feel things, they feel them very deeply. And what I would want them to know is that these intensities are also gifts. They are things that they're superpowers in a way. They allow the kids to be more perceptive than others, more empathetic, kinder. They have this intrinsic sense of justice, and those are amazing skills for a child to have, and for all adults have as well. So these things that they feel so very deeply, that at times, because of their social emotional development, maybe they're not prepared and able to manage and handle at that moment. Those are qualities that we want our children to have, and they're lucky to be. So
I want to tell gifted kids and their parents, embrace the and. I mean, you can be quirky and find the person that loves Harry Potter and Taylor Swift and basketball and nuclear waste management. I'm all the things that I'm too close to the speaker. I'm a little intense. Embrace the and, because guess what? You're going to grow up and you're going to be a gifted adult, and you're going to find gifted peers, and you're going to find a gifted spouse, and then you're going to have gifted children. And let's work on yourself now. Figure it out now. Embrace the and, so you learn how to run a business, run a school district, whatever your passion is. You'll find your people. I promise you. Not everybody's going to get you, but find that person that you can talk to about native prairie grass in Iowa with, because I promise you they're out there. Find those people, and then this might be my Taylor Swift friend, and this might be my mom friend, this might be my basketball friend. But learn that those one person's not going to be everything for you. Embrace the and, be both, be all of it.
pretty much what they said, really embracing what they are, and I have a couple of amazing fourth graders who are writers. And they're writing chapter books, and they're sending me, they're writing, and I'm so, oh, when is the next chapter coming out? But they really truly are confident, they're writing, they're not writing for, it's not a task, it's not something that was given to them, they're just reading and writing, and that's exactly what, and on the playground, the other kids can be talking about other things, those two will be talking about their chapter books that they're writing, so that's really who we want to be.
Some thoughts I've had as this is going around, and I'm gonna piggyback off of something Jen said a question or two ago about, this is not a race. And one thing that maybe I'm a little slow to the game sometimes, but gifted children will grow into gifted college students and gifted adults. And that's been a journey that I'm now in, trying to figure out how to support my gifted older kids. So while elementary school, middle school, high school even can be overwhelming for different reasons, you're not going to stop being the parent or the caregiver or the loved one of a gifted individual. And these quirks or these overexcitabilities, they don't just drop off when we hit 18 and they're good, they're on their way, they're gonna be fine. In some ways they get a little worse. And I think it just depends on the day, just like our younger kids too. It's I think the best thing as a parent is to tune into events like this and take education classes and learn what is normal, because what is normal is like 5 million different things. And so knowing that your child, your loved one that has gifts and talents is not living up to their potential might not be correct. It might be some idiosyncrasies. Maybe they're going to develop really fast in one area and really slow in another. And it doesn't mean that they're not gifted in that area. It just means that part of their brain has not turned on yet. And so I think that's an eye-opening big picture. You're going to have a child that grows into an adult that still has these gifts. And if they are empowered with how their brain works, they are better able to handle these deeply intense moments when they're in college and their heart gets broken, or they don't get into the college that they wanted to, then it doesn't have to be a devastating, you're not smart enough for that. It's, you know what, that's not your path, that's not your journey, you're hard. Let's help you work this. So just knowing that support system for these gifted learners is not going to be that. You're going to need to teach them to help you and work with their own support system. And that's excellent.
So it leads right into what I was going to say next. Isn't that nice? So unfortunately, there are no, these children don't come with handbooks. It would be so much easier if they did. They're all different. I am standing here proof positive that you can survive raising a gifted child. Can be done. One of my boys is profoundly gifted. And when he got married, I admit to saying to his wife, no give backs. It's yours. You want it, it's all yours. But you're absolutely right. They are going to continue to have challenges. They're going to continue to question sometimes themselves, question situations. Nothing rolls off the back of these kids. Everything is important. And so because they don't come with a manual, and oftentimes when you go to talk to a friend who perhaps doesn't have a gifted child and you want to share the information, oftentimes you get looked at as, really, how rough can it be? You have a gifted kid. You haven't been in my house, so you don't know how rough it can be. These kids can be really challenging. So my next question for these ladies is, what piece of advice would you give to parents in thinking about how to support these kids in addressing not only academic challenges, but also social emotional challenges, those foundational soft skills that sometimes can be really difficult for these kids? What advice would you give to the parents? How do I navigate this? Because you're navigating it every day in the classroom. What advice would you have for parents? How do I navigate this?
I would say, teach them how to lose gracefully at a very early age. Because they will be told time and time again, from 2, 3, 4, 5, oh my goodness, you're so smart, you're so good at this, you're so, sometimes they need to not be. And I know that as parents, a lot of times we want to make it soft. And we want to teach them the joy of learning Monopoly and winning every time, or learning how to play chess or whatever it is, but you need to beat them sometimes. You need to win. Because they need to learn how to lose from someone that they trust. So when they lose to you, you're still going to be there loving and, giving treats and hugs and things like that. When they lose in the world, it's not so nice. So they need to learn how to do that with grace and with dignity. That, when I lose, that's not everything. There's another game after this. I can go outside, I can watch TV. There's something else.
Well, I think we've all heard that phrase asynchronous development, but sometimes, especially I teach the first and second graders, I think we forget how young they really are, because they're able to talk at such high levels. They can explain, physics and do all these math equations in their brains. And I have a child who's so into astrology right now. I mean, he knows everybody's sun sign and everything. But then something happens on the playground, and it's tears and, perspective taking, and it's all me, and we have to take a deep breath and we have to take a step back. It comes back to also, I teach them, I do this, I don't say about recognizing your power. And it's as simple as, you have the power to make someone smile. How do you use that power? When do you use that power? You have the power to make somebody sad. And we need to learn our, so it's teaching, it's a learning experience for us as adults as well, because you want to reason it out and rationalize exactly what, no, they're not ready for that. So I think that's a big one.
Keep passing it down. Well, I was thinking of another way to think about it too, is sometimes our gifted students get so involved in themselves, they're not aware of others. And I'll tell you a funny story, and then I'll tell you something that we do to help with that. So I try not to make extra copies for my students, but they still tend to lose things, and we didn't have extra copies. And the student said to me, well, Ms. Flores, you can just make a copy during your lunch. And he starts working. And so we joked about it. I go, oh, this for the sake of his hidden identity, his name is Bobby. So Bobby. So Mrs. Flores doesn't have to eat lunch, right? She's just going to make copies. And he looks up and he gives me a little smirk. And I said, okay, everybody, when you grow up and have a job interview with Bobby, just know he's not going to look at it. So we were just joking. And it was just like, oh yeah, Mrs. Flores needs to eat lunch. So just, it was no big deal. They know I work during lunch, but it was just coming outside of themselves. And we did it in a joking manner. And so we still joke about it. It's like our classroom joke, no hard feelings, just kind of make them look up for a second and think about others. So what we do a couple times a year, usually around Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, I have pre-made little notes, and they're pretty neutral. And we talk about different people in our building and what they do for us, like call for lunch or your water bottle, lost and found, and things like that. So we make a list and we talk about who does what. And they're like, oh, and a couple years ago, one of our aides, helpers, he would bring in his own blower and blow the yard to keep sand off the sidewalk. He just did it on his own. And the kids, I thought, the kids have to know that it's not really a normal thing that people just bring their tools to work and take care of, the facilities. So we talked about it, and they were so impressed. Like, they looked up and noticed, and then they said, oh, there he is. He's, that's what he does all the time. And so when we were writing our notes to staff last year and this year, I have them, really think about who does what to support their learning that's outside of me. we can thank other teachers, we thank staff. So that's just one way, to show some empathy, to kind of look up and see who is also supporting them. And it's just an eye opener for them. And then they get really into thinking, like they can't thank enough people. And we do that a few times a year, and the notes that they write and I, have them deliver it, it becomes really deep thinking and meaningful. And I just love that connection they make outside of our classroom to other people who support them.
I think also following their interests, knowing what they're really, where their passion is. Sometimes to us it might look, well, what are they doing? What are they talking about? But following and talking with them, asking them. I'm so many times amazed when I really sit down and talk with them, the things that they can say, how they can explain what they need. A lot of times they can really explain, they can tell us their interests, and then just nurturing their curiosity going from there so that they're developing their skills.
Follow up that 100%. Definitely older kids who've got to find mentors. We have ASU right here, and we have thousands of professors that are who will work with your kids. If you find a mentor, I mean mentors for academic reasons and mentors for those social emotional. Who's managing their emotions well? Because we are competitive. We want to win, but we also have to learn how to lose gracefully. We want to collect knowledge. So when is it appropriate? So find for the older kids, find mentors. And if you got little kids, we crave consistency and novelty. It's so hard with the young ones. The toothbrush chart isn't going to work. It's only going to work about 3 weeks. Then you're going to need to turn it to baskets. Then you're going to need to do a flip chart. Then you're going to need to do sticky notes. Because we still have to brush your teeth, comb your hair, wash your face, go to the bathroom, put your dairy on. But I put the sticky chart up, it doesn't work. It'll work for about 3 weeks. Because we want novelty. Our brains want consistency, but novelty. So stick with it if you got little ones.
The danger of going last is I feel like ditto. I'm gonna bounce off something Robin said about losing in a safe place. And not exactly that. So I love how you noted that. And if I could do it over again, I would do that with my children. But I think also as parents, it's okay if your kids are not perfect. I think that's the biggest thing is these expectations, and I don't even know that we always realize that we're expecting that perfection and that we're shocked when you get a 92 on the test. What happened? Even though we're not saying you're doing poorly because the 92 is an A, that's still good. They're hearing, there's just. So I think also as parents watching how we interact with our child, that even if we don't realize we're expecting perfection, sometimes we can be. And especially when they're younger, let them make mistakes. It's so safe to make these mistakes when you're little and to learn when you don't have things on the mind, like the college of your dreams, looking at your transcripts, or the job of your dreams, looking at your college transcripts and going through interviews. Be okay with mistakes. I think very much if you can be focused on their effort. Well, did you do your best? What could you do differently? If you didn't like this grade, what would you do differently to study or to learn the material? So really focusing on the effort put forth instead of a letter grade. That would be a big thing, I think, that would help your learners.
I'm going to have one more story. Many of our children are perfectionists. It can't be done perfectly, then I don't want to do it. I did a presentation to parents a number of years ago, and there was a mom in the audience, and I talked about being cognizant of just that fact. Your child comes home and they missed 2 on the vocabulary test, and you said, honey, what happened? We studied those. And so the 18 other problems that they got right were just negated. Now, mom was sitting in the audience and she said, I listened to you and I thought, oh, being a parent is that. That's horrible. Then a week later, my daughter came home. She had a paper that she had obviously put effort into. She had gotten a good score on it. It was not perfect, but she had done well. Her dad was out of town, and I said, you know what? Let's put this on the refrigerator so when daddy comes home, you can show this to him. She said, my daughter pulled it off, crumpled it up, threw it in the trash. And she said, Mommy, perfect papers go on the refrigerator. That is not a perfect paper. And this mom said, I stood there and thought, I taught her that. I didn't mean to. It was not my intent. But she said, without even realizing it, 100% were what we always put on the refrigerator. I taught her that perfect was what she was striving for. She said, so now I have some unteaching to do. Sometimes we don't intend to focus them on that perfection. It just happens. So being really cognizant of what we say and how we say, I love the part in this. This was amazing. Rather than that finished product. So ladies, I have one last question, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to share anything else that you want to share. And hopefully they won't run away. Motivation. Motivating gifted kids. Give me your expertise and your perception, your perspective. How do you motivate gifted kids?
That's particularly hard to answer because probably like most kids are so different. Some require, just put the challenge in front of them, and that is enough to motivate them to work. And then there are, of course, others that require a lot more motivation than that. Sometimes because they are afraid to start because they don't know that the end result of what they do is going to match up with the perfect vision that they have in their head. Sometimes it's because they have so many ideas and they can't really narrow it down. Sometimes a task just seems to be way too big and it needs to be broken down into smaller chunks, and then they're ready to attack the problem. But so I say that how do you motivate? Well, I think it really just depends on the child. What does that child need? Maybe it's not a preferred task, and that's the reason why they don't want to do it. So some incentives could work in that case. If it's because, again, they're breaking it down into chunks, so it just seems overwhelming, so breaking it down for them, that could be a way to motivate them, because now it doesn't feel like this insurmountable challenge. It's actually do. So many different ways. I'm gonna jump in. I did very day to day. Class. Depending on what they're thinking. 100 years ago, when I first started teaching, before I had children of my own, I had some very naughty boys in my class, fifth grade class, very, very naughty. I had to find their currency, and they wanted to learn the periodic table. Well, I kind of remember a little bit about that. So why don't we make a deal? If you behave, and I don't have to threaten you during this day, and I'm probably using the wrong words right now, but I'm sure I was very PC. I did not say or threaten them. That I said, if the day without you guys being naughty, and we can get through the things that we need to do, you may stay after school for 10 minutes, and I will teach you about the periodic table. And those little boys pulled their act together, and I gave some chemistry lessons after school. Weirdest thing ever. Like, I won't teach you chemistry. And it was so I think what speaks to them, and that could change, but find their currency and whether it's an incentive, like teach you something, or finding that preferred task. But
when I hear this question, my mind is everywhere. I'm like trying to pull, right? I have two answers to this one, but one is definitely that there has to be buy-in on their part. So I try to have them invested in their own learning. For example, our class is doing these nocturnal endangered animal research projects right now. But instead of saying, you get the quokka, and you get the saola, and you get the jerboa, and you get the two, those are really the animals we're researching. What I had them do was first come up with a list of all the nocturnal animals they could find. And then from that list, they had to narrow it down all of the endangered nocturnal animals. I then had them put their top 5 choices on a piece of paper. And by the time I assigned their animals, every single one of them, I like to think every single one, was so excited because they had already invested, they'd already researched, and they had choice.
So now they're driven to do it because part of it came from them. And the other answer that I just pulled out of, I don't know where, is I love to start a lesson with, what do you notice and what do you wonder? And it works for math, it works for reading. I did a great math lesson where we put a Mondrian painting up and we said, what do you notice and what do you wonder? And they were like, what does this have to do with math? But all of a sudden we were talking about rectangles and area and colors and negative space, and they got to design their own. So, and again, with the book, they may not be interested in the book. By the time I activate that sense of wonder, they have some investment in that learning. I would have to say, celebrating a challenge. So a lot of times when we're doing writing, we're starting off, and again, preschool and kindergarten children, you know, the technical things, you know, using space between your words and capital letters and punctuation and things like that. But one of the things that I try to do with the kids at the beginning is to say, okay, you have to do this one sentence, but if you feel like you need a challenge, maybe you'll do two. And so now I have my students, when they are writing in their journals, and I say, you know, we're writing about this topic. I need you to make sure you tell me at least 3 things. I have kids who will raise their hands and say, well, is it okay if I do 5? Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Like, you just made my whole day. Yes, please do that. So that challenge of, I'm going to do what the teacher asked me to do and then give her a little bit more because I celebrate it. And, you know, what kid doesn't want to see their teacher acting a little silly and celebrating over them doing more than what was asked of them.
I am, as I'm listening to you, my brain's going all over the place because we do a lot of similar things in our program, and making connections, finding out what interests the student, so how you can have them have some choice, some voice, and still get them to learn from the lesson. Telling them why. Why do you have to do something? Why do I have to write this essay? Why? And so I try to always make a connection with every lesson. And here's why you have to do it. It's not just about this, but your life skills, what's going to happen in, you know, college and adulthood. And so they understand it's not just a silly thing to keep them busy, that there's a reason behind it. And I just forgot what I was going to say, but it was the why, the connection. Oh, and I know we do a lot of this in the class, actually. I get input from them. How do we want to learn this? How do we want to do this? What do you suggest? We had a Word Masters. Word Masters has E, and E is always you read a passage and then there's like 15 questions and you have to answer the questions. One of my students said, Mrs. Flores, what if we wrote this something? What if we came up with an E section and then we had to come up with the questions? And so we kind of modified it a little bit. I had them come up with a few like deep thinking, like depth of knowledge, level 2 and 3 questions, just a few of them. But they had to write an animal of their choice that they wanted to research, the animal, insect, whatever, and they had to embed the Word Masters words in there, and they loved it. The funny part is, as a parent, we said, this assignment is really difficult, it's very challenging, and I didn't tell her it was a student who came up with it. But it worked, and her child pulled through and did a great job on it too. So they were so engaged. They could have done it for the next 3 months. They just loved the project, but they came up with it. And so I try as much as possible to let them think. Sometimes I guide them and let them come up with some lessons, and I get their buy-in like we discussed. And then it works.
All right, ladies. Anything else that, before I open it up to questions here, anything else that we didn't ask that you think, oh, parents really need to know this? Yes.
I know, I regret that I'm not great. I'm gonna play devil's advocate this one. I don't have it in my head because I just wrote it on my board for a quote tomorrow. But it basically is saying, if we don't reach for the stars, then we might make a mistake and aim too low. So I feel like earlier I was saying, oh, don't be so hard. I also realize that they've got a lot of potential, that they're going to make mistakes to find that potential. So it's okay to expect a lot. It's okay to challenge them to reach to higher grounds, because these kids are so stinking creative in their thoughts. They're going to be running a world I can't really imagine. When my children who were applying to college, they said, Mom, did you do this? Oh, no, honey, we didn't have to. So good luck. So I think that that's also, that there's a very hard balance between not, breaking their little spirits, but also encouraging them and challenging them to go be those innovators, go creatively think outside of things I would even consider. Because it's going to be a different world in 20, 30 years. Jobs will exist. 3 years. Okay, 2 or 3 years. I'd like to just add a little bit. Lately, I've been working with my students really full their deep thinking, their high ability critical thinking. And I walk around the room when we're working on group projects and I can see their thinking. We do something called hexagonal thinking. And I'll walk around and I'll say, tell me something I can't find on the internet. Oh, I can search that on the internet. Try to get them to really think and allow them not to just regurgitate the story and just, oh, great, they can read Harry Potter. They can tell me all about the characters, but can they talk about themes? Can they make connections? And so when they're reading stories, just talk to them. It's not about taking a 10-point quiz at the end, and passing that because they know the setting and they know the characters, but really have a deep conversation with them on their thinking. Like what did they notice? What did they wonder about? What did they learn from the story? Was there deeper meaning? Like their symbols, and just have fun with the conversation. And you don't have to know the story to ask them questions about what they're reading, but to go just let them have those deeper conversations.
And you don't have to know the answer. Yeah, you don't. It's okay. I learned that real early. All right. We do want to open it up to questions. I do want to remind you that we can't answer specific questions about your child, but if you have a question that you don't panic. If you have a question, we are more than happy to get our ladies here to see if they have any answers for you. I don't know if we have online. Anybody have a question that they'd like to ask before I release these women? Yes, ma'am.
So I have some 8th grader. I have an 8th grader, and he's in the Journey program, and it's been very, very good for him. All the things you talked about, like him always having the answers, and Journey helped him that working hard doesn't mean that you're dumb. I mean, he thought he was dumb. So it's gone really well, but he's really only gotten gifted curriculum or education support in 7th and 8th grade, and now he's going off to high school, and Paradise Valley is full of amazing programs, and we toured them all. He doesn't want to go to any of them. Okay. Not a single one. So, what advice would you have to just help him? I am a little afraid he's going to get lost in the sea. He's picked a very large high school. What would be your advice to just keep that learning, that wonder, advocating for himself, just some ideas that that he doesn't get lost in baseball.
I think there's particularly for gifted kids, there's great importance in finding like-minded peers. And so for my child, I think my focus would be on meeting people. How can you identify what if this person is a good friend? Once they find their community, I think most kids will be find the good in the program. And the program may be great, but without any connections or community, they will not get it that way. So I think that would be good.
And I taught middle school for 10 years, so we end of 8th grade, we do lots of this, just role modeling at home, like you're going to be sitting at different, how are you going to make a new friend? literally role modeling it, I'm gonna tell you something about what I'm gonna do this week. Are you gonna remember it on Monday to say, hey, how was your baseball game on Monday? Even if I don't care about baseball. I won't say that, but I can. Those, you really have to practice those scenarios, especially when they're in middle school. And that's when all the self-doubt, now they're not getting their self-esteem from you anymore. I mean, the younger kids are, but in middle school, they're getting it from themselves. And so just what Christina said, find your niche. I mean, find whatever club you want to be in student council. You go to a teacher, teachers care. They will start a club for you. You have all done it. They will do it, but find it and role model for it. What it's going to look like moving from class to class. How am I going to make it? How am I going to belong? How am I going to fit in? Because we're not all Friday night football people.
I would ask you to. I would ask, one of the things is, regardless of what high school they go to. I always had my kids investigate ahead of time. What are the clubs that are offered at this school? What are the ways for you to be involved outside of the classroom? Research those, know what's available, because that's where your connection's gonna come out. Yes, you're gonna make friends in your classes, and you're gonna have people that, I really like this person in math class or whatever. But what you remember from high school and what makes high school matter is what you did outside of the classroom as much as what you did inside the classroom. So find out what's available. Do they have a particular club that you think I might be interested in? I know that at the beginning of the school year, the majority of the high schools have the opportunity for kids to kind of meet and talk it, and all the different clubs present so that they have an opportunity to figure out all the different, take advantage of that, because that's where you're going to find the kids that you connect with. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to add to something that was said up there, just because we're talking about high school students. And you mentioned we have many programs here. I happen to be the president of the CREST parent group at PD High School. One of the things the CREST teachers have said over and over is we are educating students for jobs that do not currently exist. So that is probably the hardest thing for us as parents to think about with our kids, especially gifted kids, because they want it delivered in a box. They want to see what it is that they're going for. And most of us as adults know that, after you get past that, I want to be a firefighter, a lawyer, a doctor. Between those are literally thousands and thousands of jobs. For those that don't know, PD High School just instituted a new computer science program that allows students to get a certificate at the end of their 4 years in cybersecurity. That is brand new. That is not CREST specific. It is the entire campus. But of course, it is a part of the CREST program in computer science. Again, that is an area that is in every single job market that exists because everybody's dealing with cybersecurity. So these are, again, jobs that 10 years ago they weren't words. They were not part of our dialogue.
Well, we have to remember, as hard as it is, our children don't know a world without smartphones. They don't know a world without the internet. They don't know. I mean, if you put a group of 4-year-olds in a computer lab, first thing they do is try to move the screen. They don't know anything other than this. And so that means that world is changing so fast. They're ready, much more ready than I am. But don't be afraid to let them explore some of those things that you may think of as, are you sure there's a job out there in that? Most likely there is. There is. Well, any other questions? Yes.
So, I have a son who'll be going to 6th grade this year, and so we've been looking at middle schools. So I've taken him to tour, Mountain Trail with the Journey program. I know she mentioned that. We went to the Sunrise, the digital. Is there any other, am I missing? Because I'm new to this and I flounder because I work a lot, but is there any other program that we should know about
to go and look at before we make a decision?
Well, all of our middle schools offer honors programs.
Yeah, we've
So-
got two that have. I
All of
just
them
don't think
offer
they're
those.
gifted.
We don't, those are the two.
Those are the two.
Big
Okay.
gifted programs that we have at the middle school level.
Okay.
But we do have, Explorer has amazing honors offerings. So there are programs throughout, but when we think of our highly gifted kids, we tend to look at the Journey program and the DLC. That you are correct. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
What do you? Okay, so I don't know much about this, but there are certain schools that are like kind of gift, that have a larger gifted population, am I correct? So how do you know with the child who, like, this is just like, this is an inkling right now. How do you know whether to keep them like at their, at their school with their peers versus, I don't know if it's open enrollment or if you have to be, I can't think of the word, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to be nominated or recommended for a program. Like, how do you know? Is that based on your child, or is that?
So a lot is based on your child. For the comprehensive gifted program, you have to have the scores to qualify, and then it is an application process.
Okay.
And that's definitely something that your child's teacher can talk to you about. In the gifted office, we are happy to answer any questions about that. I tell parents, if you're wondering about your child, just call us. That's why we're here. We're here to support you. I talk with parents all day long about, and they always start with, I'm sorry to bother you. That's my job. My job is to talk to you. My job is to answer your questions. My job is to make sure that you know what's available in our district. So please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to you about your specific child. How do I know what school's best? Should I be thinking about the comprehensive gifted program? We're happy to talk about that.
April 11th.
April 11th. April 11th, we are hosting a programming in PV. So I will be talking about all of the different programs that we offer, explaining what it looks like, because oftentimes parents will say, well, what's a cluster? What is the comprehensive gifted program? You keep talking about 2E. What the heck is 2E? We're going to be talking about all of those programs and helping parents navigate and understand what's next. So my child is going from elementary to middle school. Okay, well, what about high school? Where do we go from here? All of that will be discussed on April 11th. We would love to have you if you're available to come. We'll go through all of those programming options and talk about what's available. I do want to thank you for coming this evening, and I especially want to thank these ladies, because I now owe them big. We do have a drawing this evening. We have 3 books, 4 books that we would like to share with you. We know that one of the things that we find with gifted kids is that anxiety and that worrier. And they are worriers. They worry about things that it's like, my son was concerned about the fact that we had visited SeaWorld in Texas, and he was 3 at the time, and 6 months later, his brother comes in and says he won't go to sleep. And so I'm in there, it's like, hey, are you not feel well? What's wrong? I mean, I'm just very concerned. Like, concerned about what? Okay, remember the big whale at SeaWorld? Yes. How did they get it in the tank? Because, mommy, he cannot have come up the river because that is a freshwater river. And I know that he is a saltwater animal, so he can't have come up the river. And there is no ocean close to where the SeaWorld is there. And mommy, how did he get there? I will admit to you, I punted because I wanted him to go to sleep. And I said, honey, they have really big trucks. And they put the whale in a big truck and they drive it. Are you sure? Positive. Positive. The next day, I reached out to figure out, and luckily I was right. There is a really big truck, and that's how they move the whale. But these kids are warriors. And so the books that we have are amazing ways to think about supporting your child from moving from warrior to warrior. So I'm going to let Elizabeth do the drawing, and then we'll close for the evening.
Well, we didn't get a ticket.
Karen, the author of these books has talked a number of times, and we have him on video several times on our YouTube
Oh,
channel.
good.
So please, look for those.
And it's also on our gifted website. We
Yes.
have, Dr. Dan Peter is a favorite of ours. I'm sure we'll be bringing him back. He has a great website with a lot of, information for parents as well. If you can help. So we have 2 books. One is for parents and teachers, and then one for worriers. Maybe you want to read that one with your worrier. So, all right, so here we go. That number phone. 585-884. 884. Oh,
Yep.
right up here. And the next one. 585-893. Two more. 585-886. Yay! Not ready. Last. 585-887. 887.
We want to thank you so much this evening for taking the time to come out with us. Thank you to those of us who were online. We greatly appreciate it. We hope that you gained some insight and some information that is valuable to you. Please have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Lastly, I would just say you, parents of gifted students, if you're on Facebook, we do have a PV Parents of Gifted Students. If you'd like to join us on that Facebook group, you will find a lot of other parents that have had students in the district and in the neighboring areas that might be able to answer some of your questions as well. Thank you.
Oh, I think you're talking about my husband. And I don't know the other John.
Yeah, I think it was short.
Okay.